Welcome po. Pag-uusapan natin yung isa pang mainit na issue ngayon, the ICC statement on the situation, the human rights situation in the Philippines. They think there's basis to, hindi pa naman sigurado, no, but they might proceed with the investigation for crimes against humanity dito sa Pilipinas in the conduct of the drug war. Ano po yung sa tingin nyo, ano ba yan? May patutunguhan ba yan? Kasi sinasabi ng government wala nang jurisdiction sa amin ng ICC. You think may patutunguhan siya?
Well, we are actually optimistic. At the same time, we're cautious. So, first, why are we very optimistic? Because in fact, when the Office of the Prosecutor stated that there's reasonable basis to believe that crimes against humanity have been committed, it's actually a standard in the Rome Statute that will trigger the application of a preliminary investigation. So in a sense, the pieces of evidence, the information available before the Office of the Prosecutor means that there's actually already a fulfillment of a substantive standard for it to apply for a preliminary investigation. Now, why are we cautious? Because in fact, in the last paragraph concerning the Philippines, there was a paragraph there that says that the Office of the Prosecutor will still wait until the first half of 2021 to decide whether or not they will pursue application for investigation. But we can say that there already is 1 foot on the door. So
yeah, but Atty, when you say application for investigation, that application is filed with whom?
It's filed by the OTP with the pretrial chamber, so it's still with the ICC. So it will formally ask for an authority to investigate, because as of this moment, there's actually no power yet by the OTP to have an investigation.
But does the investigation have to take place and occur within our territory in the country? And for that matter, do they need permission from government? What are the protocols there?
Okay, so there are actually two questions there, Robbie. So first is, do they have to make an investigation here in the Philippines? Well, for all practical reasons, since the pieces of evidence will have to be here in the Philippines, those are documents, those are people, those are witnesses, then there's really a logistical need for officers from the OTP to come here in the Philippines. Secondly, the question as to whether or not the Philippines may or may not cooperate, actually just based on the Rome Statute in Article 127, the Philippines actually has that obligation to cooperate with the investigation. It's irrelevant whether or not we're still a party to the ICC. There's what we call a residual obligation to still fulfill the obligation to cooperate with the investigation.
Okay. What is the time frame for all of that? I mean, will it be reasonably finished before the term of the president? And will it be the president, in effect, that's going to face possible conviction? Ganun ba yun? Or is it the government? When you say government, is that the president? What kind of punitive measures are going to be imposed? I mean, what sanctions are we talking about?
Okay.
If found guilty.
As to the first question, Luci, so time frame, in fact, we can already see it in the report in the last paragraph that the Office of the Prosecutor has already set the first half of 2021, some sort of a deadline, whether or not it will ask actually for authority from the pretrial chamber. So we have until June of 2021 to know whether or not it will apply for that authority.
But
now, after beyond that, well, actually, it can still move beyond that if there are actually exigent circumstances, such as the worsening pandemic, for example. But I think it's reasonable now to expect that the latest will be June 2021, when we will know whether or not there's a application for preliminary investigation. Now, as to the time frame for the pretrial chamber to decide, so I think it's reasonable to to think of 1 to 2 years, but it can even be 11 years. It actually happened with a specific country, Afghanistan. In fact, it took about 11 years before there was a decision by the pretrial chamber that there will be no authority to investigate. That's why they even appealed it, and it just came out this March of 2020 that they actually overturned. The appeals chamber of the ICC overturned the pretrial chamber decision. So it will take anywhere from 1 to 11 years.
Attorney, what are the consequences if you are a person indicted before the ICC? What can happen to you?
So first, the ICC will have to take personal jurisdiction. So there will be a arrest of that person.
Who will
And
carry
then-
out the arrest? Which unit will carry out the arrest?
Okay, this is the tricky part because it means that the arrest will be implemented in the state party's territory, and that's the Philippines.
Yes.
So in fact, it will be the Philippine officers who will arrest, in a sense.
Ano yun? You are deputized? You are deputized by the UN? Because the UN has its own team, di ba? To carry out these things.
But for
Kailangan
this
pala
case-
sarili natin.
for this case, really, the ICC doesn't really have what we call maybe marshals. They don't really have that people who will arrest. So they will have to, in a sense, deputize, in effect. And this deputization is really related to the state party's obligation
Yes.
to actually cooperate with the investigation. So in fact, they will invoke Article 127 of the Rome Statute that even though we are not a state party, we still have that residual obligation to cooperate even in the arrest.